What's going on, guys? We've got a different kind of video for you here today. So I'll kind of start out with some background information on what inspired this project. I work with a guy who loves his Icon tools and he doesn't own any Snap-on. I've been trying to get him to try some tool truck brands, get him to convert over from the Harbor Freight garbage. But anyways, he was this past weekend, he was out at a junkyard getting some parts for one of his project cars, and he found this Snap-on 1/4-inch drive flex head ratchet inside of a vehicle that he was pulling some parts off of. Now, clearly this thing's been out in the elements for quite some time. The flex head is totally locked up. The pawl is locked up, as well as the switch on that pawl also locked up. So my goal is I'm gonna put a new head kit in this, a new faceplate, polish up the handle, get rid of all this nasty rust and corrosion, and hopefully it's a good usable ratchet for him. Now, I don't expect it to be quite as good looking as a relatively new Snap-on, but again, I just want him to have a ratchet that's reliable and works well, and a ratchet that's still going to put Icon to shame. Yeah, so go ahead and follow along with the restoration on this one, and we'll see how she turns out. All right, so for the first step here, I thought I had some evapor rust left here in the shop, but it appears I used it all on a prior project. So right now what I'm doing is soaking the head in PB Blaster, and what that's gonna do is loosen up some of this corrosion. And after this sits for a day, what I'm gonna do is gently take a wire wheel to the back of this cover plate here and hopefully expose those screws. If I'm able to break those loose, that'll be awesome. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to probably grind the heads off so I can get that faceplate off. Now, we are getting new screws and a faceplate, so that's not gonna be an issue if we damage it. But, you know, we wanna be as gentle as possible with this. I don't really wanna hack the crap out of it, grinding on it and all that good stuff. But stay tuned, we'll see how she looks in a day or two. All right, so I pulled the ratchet out of the PB Blaster. It was soaking in there for a couple hours. Didn't really seem to be doing a whole lot to the corrosion here. So I went ahead and hit it with the wire wheel very gently, not to wreck the chrome on this, and then touched it up with the buffing wheel. And you can see it actually looks pretty decent. Like I said, the faceplate's gonna be replaced on this, and we're gonna be putting a whole new head kit in it, so that will be you know, all taken out and replaced with brand new. But a little bit of pitting there, which we're not gonna be able to do a whole lot about, but the rest of the ratchet looks really good. Okay, so after hitting it with the buffing wheel, I let it soak back in the PB Blaster, and then I decided to take a crack at these little faceplate bolts, screws, whatever you want to call them. They ended up being quite a pain, so what I had to do is take a tiny chisel and chiseled them loose to where I could remove them by hand. Get this little screw out. Screw. And now I will be able to remove that faceplate, cover plate, whatever the terminology is here, and take a look at what the guts look like. All right, so it's a little bit tricky doing this one-handed, so please bear with me. I broke it loose off camera, now I'm taking the plate off. Ooh. You can see it's pretty nasty in there. Snap-on's known for their dual pawl ratchet. So you can see there's one pawl, two pawl, and just some nasty crud in here with a little spring in the detent. So I am going to remove this off camera, get everything soaking, even though everything you see here is going to be replaced. But as far as getting the internals of this head, the housing, nice and clean, we're going to let all that soak and see what she looks like. Okay, here's a quick little clip of what the insides look like. Rusty cover plate with the 2 bolts. Got your 1/4-inch drive with the 72 teeth, which you can barely see. Well, I guess you can see them a little bit. Pretty nasty. You got the dual pawl with the spring that kind of holds them together. You've got your little switch mechanism with a ball detent in there. The ball is actually pretty good shape. And then, of course, internally, get this all cleaned up, and all of the internals will be replaced. So pretty excited to see how this turns out. And I was also able to get the flex head portion of this freed up as well, just from letting it soak. So I'd say for less than an hour's worth of work, not doing too bad. All right, so it's been a couple days. I split the head and the handle off camera. That was a bear to get apart. The pin that it pivots on, which I can't seem to get this to focus into, was completely stripped out. So what I ended up doing was grinding a flat in there and then using a flathead impact screwdriver bit to bust it out of there. So anyways, we've got our new pin. We have brand new gear, brand new dual pawls. We've got our switch and then the switch selector there, the pin associated with that. There's also the little ball detent on that switch, as you can see. New cover plate and new screws. So I think what I'm gonna do before I throw this back together is we'll hit the handle on the head with the buffing wheel one more time. I had this head soaking for like 3 days. You can see there's still a little bit of pitting in there. I can't get it to clean up much better than that. So I think we're just gonna roll with it. The handle turned out pretty nice too. There's a little spot there. I'm gonna try to get that to clean up a tiny bit, but we'll see. It might be as good as it's gonna get, but we'll find out. So in the next little bit here, I'm gonna have some assembly for you guys. Okay, so we've got our rebuild parts laid out here. We're gonna go ahead and start throwing these in the ratchet head. We'll rebuild the ratchet head first, and then last we will put our new pin for the flex head in. So first, we've got the selector mechanism. It already has the little ball in there for the ball detent action when you're slipping from or switching from on to off. So just be mindful of, make sure you don't lose that for one, and two, make sure it's in one of those 2 grooves. Drop this in. Now it's not going to sit totally flat in there at first because there is an O-ring on that selector switch to keep debris out of the ratchet head. Now when putting the top of the selector mechanism in there, just make sure that your hole that the spring drops into is lined up with that ball detent that we just talked about a second ago. So I'm gonna just center that ball up in the middle, so when I drop this on, it sits flat. Now the whole mechanism is flat in there. You can actually see the ball in that bottom hole. We're going to put this spring on top of that ball now. And then next to the dual pawl, you have the little pins on the bottom. Make sure that rides in the selector switch mechanism. So both pawls in there. Your main gear. Again, everything nice and flush. New cover plate. There's actually a seal on the gear that's gonna ride in that groove there. Drop this on. Get our screws in. Everything's so small with this, it's hard to work with it. As far as this video goes, cut us some slack. We're filming on an iPhone and we are editing the video on an iPhone as well, so we're not exactly professionals here. And I don't think we're putting any of the tool channels out of business here. Make sure that's a little bit tighter. So last step here, we're going to be installing the bolt, the pin, whatever you want to call it, for the flex head. We've got this, it's almost similarly shaped to a lock washer, and what that's going to do is, as we tighten this bolt, it's going to either tighten the action on the flex head or loosen it up. This is going to be a little bit tricky, I think, to get in here, so forgive me for having my fingers in the way. There we go. Slips right into place. You got the countersink on the side for the fastener to go through. Feels pretty good. Maybe go a tiny bit tighter on this. I like that. 'Cause you don't want it to be too floppy. It drives you crazy when you're working on something and the flex head's just going all over the place. So that's what's nice about these ratchets is if you do want it looser, you loosen this thing up, and if you want it tighter, you tighten it up. But man, I mean, overall, you look at what we started out with, this is as close to a brand new ratchet as you're gonna get. Now there are some little imperfections. There's some pitting on the head here that we weren't able to polish out. But all in all, for a free ratchet that my buddy found in a junkyard, I'd say we're doing pretty good. I want to thank Travis, my Snap-on guy, for the hookup on the rebuild kit here. He got us the cover plate, the head kit, as well as the pin for the flex head. And shoot, only took a couple days to get here. So yeah, that's been our restoration video on a 1/4" drive Snap-on ratchet. Just when you thought the video was over, we got to test this thing, right? It might look good, but does it work? So what we've got here, this is a 2018 Honda Sierra 450 motor that we completely rebuilt, vapor blasted, powder coated side covers, valve cover, you name it. Last piece to the puzzle is putting on this JB billet water pump cover. Just gonna slide that in here. Get our bolts going. And our rebuilt ratchet, we'll just quickly run these in by hand. snug these up with our basically brand new 1/4-inch flex head. There you have it. She works, and it's going to live to see another, I hope, 20 years of wrenching. Thanks, guys.